After more than 80 years, the NFL's Redskins are, for now, just Washington. The team responding to calls from their sponsors to drop the name Redskins. Major retailers also removed merchandise from their websites over the name viewed by some as offensive to Native Americans. The White House has a different take. Listen to this.
These teams name their teams out of strength, not weakness. And he talked about the Washington Redskins and Cleveland Indians looking at changing their names. He believes that the Native American community would be very angry at this.
Former NFL player and advisory board member for Black Voices for Trump, Jack Brewer, joins me live with his take. Jack, good to see you this morning. Thanks for being here.
Good morning.
Where do you stand on this?
You know, when you look at it, you're never going to make everybody happy, unfortunately. When you talk about race and you bring in race into all these issues, you know, that's one conversation. But this conversation is really about money. When you look at it, you know, FedEx, you know, who paid over $200 million for the naming rights. You know, if folks really cared, if you really cared about, you know, honoring Native Americans, if you really cared about all these social justice issues, it wouldn't require you to only act when it's about the best interests of your pocketbook. I just don't think it's right. I think as a nation, we got to stop focusing so much on the material things and actually, you know, if we're worried about the oppressed, let's help the oppressed. But when we combine oppression with money making and oppression with politics, I think it's insincere.
Jack, you know, to your point, when you talk about money being involved here, I mean, this has been a conversation, as you very well know, that has gone back a long time, specifically to 2001, when Daniel Snyder, the Washington, then Redskins, I guess I should say, owner, was asked about it. And here's what he had to say.
We're never going to change the name of the Washington Redskins. It means tradition, it means greatness, it means fighting for the Redskins, fighting for Washington, D.C.
So, I mean, look, it's a different world than it was in 2001, but why now, Jack?
Cancel culture, it is real. We're watching it. You get shamed into doing things that you may not want to do, that you may not believe in. And I think that's where our society has gone. Listen, racism needs to end. You know, it's evil. It's a spiritual thing. It's ungodly. But pressuring everybody to move and do things according to what the left wants you to do, that's not right either. I think there's a balance here. You know, there's just as many Native Americans that like that name as don't like it. And so what do you do in that scenario? I'm not saying either one is right or wrong, but at some point, you know, when the cancel culture starts to shame people, I think that's when you've gone off the deep end here, because, you know, you shouldn't force anyone to do anything, not in America.
There are differing opinions, as you know, in the sports world, by sports being so political right now. Some people look at it as a platform for change. Other people look at it as there's so much happening that it's hard to focus on specific messaging right now. How do you think players feel about stuff like this?
I mean, you've seen so many players now stepping up, coming out, defending, you know, really what's right. You know, Tony Dungy standing up for God after Don Lemon made those outlandish comments. You see Charles Barkley coming out and calling it as it is. In a lot of ways, it is a circus, like Charles said, because, you know, folks really aren't making these calls in the best interest of trying to help oppressed people. What they're doing is trying to get attention and riding a wave of the liberalism that's really promoting each other on social media. The cancel culture has to stop. I've said this before. To cancel someone is to destroy them, and that is evil. That's ungodly. We got to get back to godly principles in our nation. And as athletes, we have to be those role models for these kids so that they can change what's happening right now in our society. As we see, you know, massive shootings in our inner city streets, we see the kids' reading levels are dropping. We just got a lot of deep-rooted issues that goes back to spirituality, and we need to give God back in our school. And I'll tell you last thing, we need to get the paddle back, and we need to start putting some discipline back in our children. We have fatherless kids all across the nation, with over 73% of black kids being born out of wedlock. We need to get the paddle back in schools so we can start teaching these kids discipline again.
Jack Brewer, Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it, and we'll continue to keep an eye out. I know the Redskins will come up with a new name at some point. Washington will come up with a new name at some point, I should say, formerly known as the Redskins. It's going to be weird getting used to that. Jack, thank you, as always.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back.
God bless you.